Hi, Sarah here. Welcome to my second ever Reckless Process video. Today I'll be taking you through chapter 11, page 8, from start to finish basically. I was planning on doing a different page at first, but in the end I'm glad I did this one because it shows you some interesting insights about how I structure pages and why and when I decide to move things around. So, without further ado, and before my cat interrupts this video again, let's go!
Woo! Alright, after that video effect that took an embarrassingly long time for me to learn, let's get into the video, shall we? Here I am blocking in some backgrounds from the very rough thumbnails, grabbing a bench reference off of Google SketchUp. SketchUp has been an invaluable reference for the more involved interiors I've done over the comic. It's also very useful in working out proportions and how big people should be in this area. I have a problem with proportion and keeping things consistent, which is actually my first question for today, is how I keep things consistent. Well, for the proportions, Google SketchUp helps a lot. I actually made a weird scene for the last chapter, just because it's so odd and not something that we encounter in our daily life, so I really had no mental reference for it. It was the scene in the park where Bobby puts the microchip into the collar for the first time. So I was doing that, grabbing a hamster ball off of, the things people had made and saying like, okay, how big would this hamster ball have to be for a human to actually fit inside of it? And then how big would this collar have to be for a Godzilla-sized cat? And just kind of shoving all of that into a park scenario. And that helped a lot. You can tell in panel 3 there that it took several iterations to get those poses correct. Not even really correct, just something that I was happy with. I kind of wanted to do that funny video where a cat is like arching up and rotating so far that it just falls over, but I ended up it looked weird from that angle, so I decided to do a more traditional cat arching back pose. In this panel, I originally only drew Reckless and then decided to add Urska in because she was in panel 1, so wanted to maintain consistency. A lot of being consistent is messing up and then realizing it and despairing because you have more work to do, and then hyping yourself back up to do that extra little bit of work. The next question that I got is, how do I stay organized and ahead of deadlines? Oh boy, I kind of stumbled into this one too. I have a lot of different things that I do to try and stay organized. I think the biggest one is I've just been doing this for so long. I've got a consistent weekly deadline of this is when the page has to go up. So I try to leave about a week for Aaron to letter it. And so I get the page done a week ahead of time so that he can do that. And then it uploads to Patreon the next week and to Pastic the week after. I know my work speed now pretty well, So I know that I can usually get a page done a week, unless it's super complicated. And sometimes I can even get more than one page done a week if they're simple. So that usually saves me. Usually in the beginning of the chapter, the pages will be a lot more complicated because there will be establishing shots and tons of environments. And then later on, by about the middle end of the chapter, we get into a bunch of talking head pages where there's just people's heads, basically, and it gets a lot easier. So I try and work ahead during those simple pages to give myself more time during the more complicated ones. See here, I'm periodically going back and forth to previous pages to remember what characters look like. Part of consistency is also just doing it enough that you stumble into easier shapes and forms. You'll see this in a lot of hand-drawn animated TV shows as well, that as the show goes on, the characters kind of become simpler and less rough and easier to draw because you're drawing them over and over and over and over again, and you have to hit deadlines. So it's just kind of something that happens naturally. The end of the inking stage now, and there's another consistency trick. I keep a very big palette reference document that references a lot of things, and actually, let me show that to you now. Let's take a pause from the video here and to show you my palette document. This is something I learned how to do working on my last comic project, Zero's Heroes. And actually, I have that layer right here. This is pretty much copy-pasted from that color document. I was working with so many characters who all had such disparate color schemes that I decided to mark them out in a palette document. And it started out with just splotches of color everywhere, but eventually I realized that I needed a visual record of where everything went. So I just started drawing little pictures of their uniforms, very roughly, with the colors in the spots that they're supposed to go. And then that ballooned into all of their powers. Here I have some ice here, electricity, psychic colors. These are my main environment colors that I try to use. They've been added to over the years. I think I started out with just like a basic sky and then some cloud colors, plants, and then I just kind of add whatever I feel needs doing. I think this was the most recent thing that I added for chapter 11, which was sunset sky colors. And this is all to keep myself consistent. And then I have my shading colors down in this corner here. The lighter ones for the lighting, obviously, and the darker ones for shadows. Oops. So I will make different layers for all of the different characters, and you'll see for people with slightly more complicated costumes, I have literally drawn their costumes in the colors. I make sure that the color splotches are big enough that I eyedropper them later and stay consistent. For Smugly, I have where all of her spots are. There aren't that many, but I still forget all of the time. all the time. And then I have layers for all of the different settings. Here's the colors for the school interior, the animal shelter, the school playground. I use this one a lot because you'll see the walls of the school are here. And then if I need any kind of color, like you'll see this one is the SteelTech hallway lighting. It's just a red color layer set on 20%. I will turn on these color gels, basically. I kind of took a hint from video lighting, where you'll literally put like a piece of cellophane onto a light and it will turn the light that color. So I will do this basically for any type of situation. Like this is the nighttime color. The blue kind of desaturates everything and makes it all nice and pretty. And I will start with these flats and then shade on top of them. And that's how I keep my colors consistent. Okay, back to the process. Here I am, finalizing the gutters. Trying to figure out a good way of making sure Smuggly's whiskers pop out. I'm not really satisfied with any of them. And when I'm dissatisfied, I automatically start thinking of how I can make this better. Should this even be like this? And this is when I got the idea of instead of popping her out of the frame like I was doing, why don't I just make her fill up the entire frame? The idea in the beginning was to show her size, and so I thought maybe this is a better way to do it. And I really liked it. I just wanted to make the panel kind of the same size as the other panels, so I did that. I really like this better than the method I had before because you can't see all of her now, and I feel like that's something that I want to incorporate into the rest of the comic. Smuggly is literally a kaiju now. She's a monster, so I want to make her more monstrous. I want to reduce the empathy between her and the reader as much as possible. And the way that I'm going to try and accomplish that is by never putting all of her in the panel at the same time. We'll see if I can keep doing that. I did this a lot. I realized that I forgot something and then have to go back to a previous step and put it in, like the ruffle on the teacher's skirt there. And in fact, looking at this page right now, I realized that I forgot to make the school's wall the right colors. You'll see in a bit. Here I'm pulling a previous page for reference. This is what I used to do all the time for characters and environments. And I got tired of trying to find things that I needed all the time, so I just made that palette document. But for little things, I still just pull up previous pages. And this is where I remember, oh right, this bench is not in front of a chain link fence, it's in front of the school wall. So I'm gonna go back here in a second, put some lines in. Go back to the flats, redo the flats. Make sure the windows are a consistent color. It's all very tedious. Like most work that humans do. Very tedious, but turns out good in the end. You'll see there in panel 3 that school wall is the same color above and below that gray stripe. It's supposed to be lighter at the middle. It's another thing I'll have to go fix for the print version. I know, it's just the nice meditative step of putting in shading, figuring out the puzzle of where everybody's standing and where the light's coming from, pulling up more previous pages for reference. I cheat a little bit because I want you to be able to see the characters pretty well. I don't want them to be too dark, so I just put them in a little bit of shadow. And that's it. You can see here that I added the glow effects around the eyes afterward. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for joining me for another Reclass Process video. I promise my rambling will get better. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer them in the next video. And if you want to support me, go to my Patreon. Link is in the description. Big thanks to my Patreon patrons, especially Dad and Grayscale. You guys rock. I'll see you next time. So long.